I would say I came away less confident in Joe Schoen than I did going into that conversation yesterday.
I don't think he had a good press conference. Think about what you and I talked about. You know, there was a chance that he could Joe Judge himself. He didn't do that, to be fair. He didn't basically talk himself out of a job. But I don't know. I'll listen to it live. I haven't put it again this morning live. You know, I listened to Boomer Gio. I put it on. I found it on YouTube. And
Same thing I did as I was getting ready this morning. Wanted to make sure.
I wanted to hear it a second time, but I wanted to really, just attack it a little bit differently. And I don't know how you hear that as a Giants fan and have any sort of confidence that it's going to get fixed. I heard a lot of GM speak. I heard a lot of excuses. The one thing that I said that I did not want to hear, I didn't want to hear about we're right there, we're close, could have won 3 or 4 more games. You didn't win 3 or 4 more games. By the way, the Giants averaged 15.3 points per game, which is dead last in the NFL. And he almost contradicted himself, and I don't even know that he did it, when he said, hey, most of the games, or there's a record, he kind of loosely cited a stat, like he didn't know the exact stat, but I got his point, where there's more one-possession games this year that through 9 weeks in the NFL season than, I guess, any other NFL season. Well, basically what you're saying is everybody plays competitive games. You're just the team that can't figure out how to win a few of them.
Yeah, right, exactly. It may be true with the parity in the league, and I don't think the quality of play league-wide is very good, so there is some truth to what he's saying, and I will admit that, you know me, I mean, if you've been listening to the show, I do think the Giants are closer to having some success than it appears, but that's talking about close to being maybe a team that could be on the fringe of being a playoff team. Like, even if you give them that, what does that mean exactly? They're nowhere near where they need to be, and that's been proven not just this year. You could go all the stats you want. We watched them play the Eagles and the Cowboys. How has that looked? I mean, look at them in the division. So whether you could say, well, we should have won a couple of more games, and yeah, they could have, had they had a kicker, had things gone their way, had Daniel Jones decided to pull the trigger and actually throw the football 1 or 2 times. Yeah, okay, maybe they could have a few more wins. But they're nowhere near where they need to be a legitimate team. So I don't want to hear the excuses. Look at the point differential. We watch this team. It shouldn't be impossible to score a touchdown. He could talk about, well, it's just the red zone. We're getting the red zone cleaned up. Yeah, well, that's a major thing. So to your point, I was thinking of you as I was rewatching this because you said it yesterday where you didn't want to hear the excuses. I did not see from the get-go a person who was confident coming out saying, hey, look, I'm wearing it. We need to be better. Bottom line, 2-8. I'm not here to make excuses. This is unacceptable. We will be better. I plan on being back. I have assurances I'm going to be back, and we're going to fix it. But we have been bad, and this is not acceptable. I didn't hear that. I saw somebody who was intimidated to face the media, knowing that he's got to go there with his tail between his legs because his team has had their asses handed to them for 2 straight years. And while he may have the vote of confidence from Merritt, because he did allude to that, I heard excuse after excuse and defense. Oh, the draft is good, and I believe in these players. And I was not. Again, I wouldn't fire them, but I was not impressed with what I heard from Joe Schoen yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely didn't do, well, I'm going to say he didn't do more damage. Yeah, again, I think the reference point with Joe Judge, even though Joe was the coach, not the general manager, I think that's really important because that is something that you and I brought up yesterday, and I'm happy that he didn't talk himself out of a job. I would like to see Joe Schoen and Brian Dable, get this thing going, but the problem is I don't see enough evidence that it's going in that direction. Now, his job is to, 1, construct a roster. That's his literal job. And then 1 to 2 times a year, address the Giant fan. You're a Giant fan. You heard the words. You unpacked it. Do you feel better about what he said? I think the answer is no. Do you like what he's constructed? I think the answer has to be no. So from where I'm sitting, 0 for 2.
But is there reason to believe that they can change this and turn it around? I don't think it's fair. Like, I'm going to be consistent with this. I don't think it's fair to properly evaluate a general manager in 2.5 years.
I get that. I do get that.
Flat out, it's just not. Now, you can evaluate certain things.
Yeah.
Number one, you would think the quarterback position. Well, is it his fault? Does it matter? Who knows? But they made a mistake by extending Daniel Jones. That's a mistake. And as he said, certain things he wants to have back, certain picks. And no GM is going to be perfect. And as he said, it is going to take time to turn things around here. But you can evaluate a general manager in his confidence, in how he handles things, in the accountability. And I think with Schoen, you're seeing a young, inexperienced head of the franchise. He's been experienced before working his way up the ranks, but he was handed the job. Not handed, he earned the opportunity.
No
but
question.
This is New York,
Yep.
and this is a team that has been a mess of a franchise for years. So he had a tall order to fix this thing, and it is going to take time. But when I watch him, I'm not getting that confidence from him, and maybe that's because how could you have confidence if he hasn't had success as a general manager yet?
No,
So
he
where's
is not.
that
Even the
confidence?
first year when they won 9 games, it was somebody else's team.
Correct. And you could argue that the best players are still from Dave Gettleman.
Correct.
Well, now Gettleman had, it wasn't even confidence, it was arrogance. And he also had the pedigree, and he was an old-timer. Like, he's been here, not just here, but in the game a long time and doing this stuff. So it's totally different feel, but there's got to be an in-between where you don't want the arrogance and a lack of awareness from Gettleman where he didn't acknowledge reality, and then Schoen where you see a lack of confidence and almost excuse-making to a point where it's like, come on, dude, like, just acknowledge your team. I'm not expecting them to throw Daniel Jones under the bus, but come on.
Listen, and by the way, I'm not saying that that's an easy room. I thought the questions they were coming hard. You listen to as they should. I mean, this is New York, and these are, reporters who want answers and fans who want answers and demand answers and accountability. The Giants tickets are not cheap. Parking is not cheap. Merchandise is not cheap. So when things are awry and have been awry for a while, we deserve to know why. And I really did think, and sometimes, all the big, bad New York media, I got news for you. I think sometimes it's really overhyped.
It is.
I really do. Like, I think that Aaron Boone over the years could have been peppered more. I think others could have been peppered more. But I do think the reporters were good yesterday. Now, here's the thing. This is not so much a referendum on the job that Joe Schoen's done so far, because the record speaks for itself, and it's probably a C-, maybe a D+, whatever.
Right.
Okay, somewhere in that neighborhood. The issue is, does he deserve another go-round and getting his quarterback? Well, okay, I think he's probably going to get it. I'm not sure that I would give it to him, but why I pause is, like, if the other draft aspects were really good and, like, he was crushing the O-line and crushing it, then I could say, hey, there is enough evidence. Let this man get his quarterback, and he's going to cook.
Right.
But he has not gotten enough other pieces that are, like, I'm not saying viable. There's certainly some viable pieces, but where I'm like, wow, he crushed this. He rocked that. Okay, this guy's going to be a stud. Like, it's a lot of, it's a lot of quantity.
Right, but realistically, forget about Joe Schoen for a second. Just in general, how long do you think it would take for a general manager to be properly evaluated when he's taking over a team that's a mess?
Yeah, I think it varies. I would say probably 4 years.
I mean, at least you would think. At least think about that.
Yeah.
4 years. So you're going to have him here. So obviously the first year of his reign is taking, I guess it depends on when you hire and fire guys. But 4 drafts, that's it?
Well, the first year, you're just assessing what you have. Kind of like Stearns a year ago at the Mets.
Yeah.
You got to see what's going on.
Right.
So you give him kind of a pass, and ironically, that was the one good season. Yeah, I mean, in a conventional world, I would say 4 years, but they're so bad in certain spots that the only thing, let me put it this way, Sal. The only thing supporting more time for Schoen is the thought that general managers deserve more time.
Right.
I don't know that there's enough tangible stuff.
Right, but
I'm not pointing to, well, he did this,
But
this,
that's why I'm asking you in general. That's why I'm asking you in general. I mean, Joe
I'm
Douglas
saying in general, at least 4 years.
Joe Douglas had, 15 years?
Joe Douglas is going to get fired.
Yeah, well,
let's not use the Jets as the right example.
But I'm just saying,
the Jets are awful.
But at least he's had plenty of time to turn it around.
Yep.
Whereas prior regimes, 2-3 years, it's not, like, to me, in general, it's not about the Jets or the Giants or Joe Schoen or Joe Douglas. You cannot truly properly evaluate a general manager in 3 years. You can't do it. I don't care who they are, how bad they are. Now, maybe somebody's so bad and handles things with the media so poorly that you could justify firing him, just saying, you know what, I made a mistake. He's not the right guy. Same thing with Joe Judge. Like, you can't tell me that you could properly evaluate a head coach in 2 years, but you could have a gut feel and say, I made a bad hire here.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But this is not the time for the Giants to say, I made a bad hire here with Schoen and Dable. I don't think that's the case. They hired them for a reason. They have to stick to their beliefs and say, I need to see this play out at least 4 years. And honestly, it may take longer. Like, people don't want to hear that because we're impatient, and I get it. But it may take longer. Not only is this regime only in year 3, they haven't picked their quarterback. So how on earth, and again, I was not impressed at all by the press conference. I was turned off by Joe Schoen. If anything, I was more turned off by what I heard yesterday than excited or having belief in him. But it's 2.5 years, and they haven't even picked their quarterback yet. There's no way anybody can properly evaluate, at the very least, the general manager.
All right, Giant fans are fired up. We'll get these calls here. 888-808-1019. BT and Sal. I don't agree, Sal, quickly, with the concept of evaluation. I agree with how you frame it. 4 years, maybe even a little more, depending upon what you inherit. I got you. But I do believe in at least having an early-ish to mid-read on the job they're doing and then trying to determine, is it good enough to give them the 4 years? And I'm not there. Because the roster stinks.
I do think with a head coach, it's different. Like, you can learn that in a year or two to see where the program's going. With the general manager, for me, I think you need more time. Stuart is calling from Brooklyn. And our friends at Town Fair Tire remind you that at Town Fair Tire, you always get the guaranteed lowest price on name brand tires from Connecticut to Maine. Nobody beats Town Fair Tire. Nobody. What's up, Stuart?
What's up, Sal? How are you, man?
Good.
How are you, Sal?
Good, Stuart. We went over that twice. Very good. How are you? Yes.
Come on, Stewie.
BT's great as well.
Yeah, everybody's
What's up,
good,
Stuart?
except the
Sal.
Giants.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sal. Let me tell you something. You can't evaluate them, but you want to know where are they going. And the thing is, the fact that they gave Daniel Jones that contract, that makes it look bad for them. How could you give him $160 million over 4 years without that in the second year? He should not be playing anymore.
I think that's a great point, Stuart. Oh, sorry, Stuart, and thank you for the call. I think that's a great question, BT. And we alluded to this, and we've talked about this, in weeks past. But who do you blame for Daniel Jones? Like, obviously, when you're talking about Daniel Jones and the pie chart of blame, Gettleman takes a big chunk because he's the one who drafted him. Terrible mistake. Hurley was just showing me a video before the show about Todd McShay, basically before the draft, saying he would only be a career backup. Yet Gettleman reaches, and you said this yesterday, I think. It was a reach.
He was overdrafted, no question.
Overdrafted at number 6. So Gettleman takes a big bulk of the blame. The owner takes, to me, if you're going pie chart, like I'd give Gettleman 80% of the blame, because none of this would happen without him. And by the way, where the Giants are at, I give Gettleman 90% of the blame because you shouldn't have taken Barkley. But anyway, with Daniel Jones specifically, 80% of the blame, maybe 15% of the blame is on Mara because he stuck with him and believed in him, and then maybe 5%, is that the right math? But 5%.
I think it might be 5% sure, but I get it. It's very one-sided.
Yeah, that's for me.
Yeah.
But how do we, maybe Shane and Dable did really want Daniel Jones more so than Mara.
Well, that's the thing. No, I think Mara's fingerprints are all over this. But what we don't know, and I don't really, listen, Gettleman, 75, 80%, no one's pushing back on that. But what we don't know, and what we always try to, work around and, piece together, we don't know. I mean, Dable very well, and Shane may have said, hey, we like this young man. He's big, he's strong, he's tough, he's fast, we can do this, and I can see that in a year or two. So it's we can't just present it as Mara shoved them down their throat. And they were like, I don't really want this guy, but all right, we just got here, and the owner's saying you got to keep him. Like, I don't think that that's the case. I do think that Mara's influence was palpable, but I don't think it was 100% Mara, 0% Shane and Dable.
Right,
I really don't.
And that's kind of the point. So even though they haven't taken their own quarterback, you have to judge them on sticking with this quarterback. And what I think happened here is, if you just use a little common sense, they said, we don't believe he's the guy to be the Super Bowl winning quarterback face of the franchise, but he's our best option now, and we can win some games with him and maybe get him to progress to the point where he can take his game to another level. I believe that's what they believe, and that has been proven to be wrong.
That's why I think the pie percentage increases unfavorably toward them.
Understood. It should be a little bit more. Anthony's calling from Jersey City. What's up, Ant?
Hey, Ant.
Hey, what's up, guys? My takeaway from yesterday, and trust me, as far as the Giants, how long they've been switching regimes and whatnot, I'm a little bit torn over this because I generally like the guys, and I know just liking these guys ain't getting the job done, but, the way they talk football, the way they presented themselves, I know they overexceeded in, 22, but my takeaway from yesterday was Shane lacked accountability in so many phases of where this team is now. Like, going back on some of his drafts and not admitting that some of these guys, were misses and drafting for depth. I think the way he tried to build this was, two guys that over-succeeded in 22, thought they were going to be able to make another leap, and they went away from what the plan should have been.
Well, I disagree with that. Where'd they go away with the plan? What are you talking about? What should the plan have been?
I'm talking about as far as when they were coming off
the successful
22.
season. Yeah.
Yeah, when they were coming off 22, I just felt like I don't even think they took an offensive lineman in the draft that year, which they needed desperately because the first picture you seen was opening day. Andrew Thomas went down and the season spiraled out, and they made a statement about why they didn't draft offensive linemen.
Evan Neal's been a bust. I wouldn't say they got away from the plan, Anthony. What I would agree with you is that I don't think Joe Schoen, you don't have to answer every single question. And again, him and Dable, you can tell that they're coached from the same people because they keep saying, I understand the question, but I understand why you're asking that, which is their way of trying to be nice.
Of course.
But then they dismiss it. What he could have said is, look, here's the bottom line. I haven't been good enough. We haven't been good enough. The results are what they are. I can make excuses and say, we should have won this game by a field goal or that or this or that. Nobody wants to hear that. The results aren't where they should be. Meaning, I've made some good draft picks or some good acquisitions. I've made some bad ones as well. I need to get this thing turned around. I believe we will. Give me next year, and I will, however you want to say it, but that's the point. Take some accountability. And it was more like, we're, a bounce away from being, 5-3, whatever it may be.
They average 15.6 per game. 15.6 points per game. That's all anybody needs to know. And I do think that we've said this. The first year complicated their evaluation. If they would have gone 3, and was that still 16 games? No, they thought. No, I guess that was the first 17. Either way, if they would have had 3 or 4 wins that first year, then I think the natural pecking order is, all right, incremental progress, start with some depth and then bring in some frontline players and slowly move up. Instead, it's the Commanders who have now they've got their quarterback, but it's not just that. And that's why I say, I know that they haven't yet had their true quarterback, but I don't know if I'm prepared to give them that license to do it because the other pieces they brought in, they aren't very good.
Yeah, the problem is that they had that success that first year, and it didn't give people, I think, false hope about what they could be. But what it did do was have them go with Daniel Jones. Had they lost that first year, then all of this would have been expedited, whereas opposed to we're going to go into year 4 with Schoen and Dable and a new quarterback, it would have been year 2 with Schoen and Dable and a new quarterback had Daniel Jones and the Giants failed that first year. Their own success is what made things worse. BT and Sal on the Fan Warrior calls 888-808-1019 on the other side.
All right. I'm sorry, Sal. I didn't mean it. Did you
I was going to say we have Jermaine Illuminor coming up as well at some point over the course of the next hour or so.
There you go.